we hear people who talk about how government needs to get better at creating jobs. Government does not create jobs. And here this shouldn't be a Republican or a conservative idea alone, because it's just true that government doesn't create jobs. And so we should hope that people all across the political spectrum can articulate this truth. So I'd like to celebrate one of those. Tom Carper, the Democratic senator from Delaware, will regularly correct people when they ask him a question. If you see a reporter asking Tom a question about job creation and what government's going to do to create more jobs, he will say, wait a minute, government doesn't create jobs. Government creates a nurturing environment in which job creators create jobs, in which small businessmen and women create jobs. And we need to be on a warpath about making sure we get that language right, not because it's some sort of a semantic game for nerds, but because if you get that wrong, you will get the policies wrong that come next. And politicians regularly want to talk like we are the center of the world and we can, by some great omniscience in advance, decide what we're going to do to make sure we've created jobs. No politician creates a job. Now, we do need to recognize that government has really important responsibilities in that area of creating and maintaining, especially maintaining, that nurturing environment. There are issues around the rule of law we could spend all day on. If you haven't read Paul Collier's book, The Bottom Billion, read it. Because there is to radically oversimplify, there's 7 billion people on Earth, and in about 1800, there were about 800 million people on Earth, so just under a billion in the year 1800, and almost everyone lived in abject poverty. And the way to define abject poverty is basically, can you make it through one really bad year? If you have a bad winter or you have a bad harvest, are you going to be sufficient? Are you going to know that you're going to survive next year? That's a fair metric for what abject poverty is. And essentially in 1800, there were kings, and they were okay, and almost everybody else of the 800 million people was within 1 year of catastrophe. Today, there are 7 billion people on the earth, and there are about 800 million living in abject poverty. About the exact same nominal number, but over 6 billion of our neighbors have some sort of economic environment, economic arrangements that comport with their dignity and have them less afraid. That is great for moms and dads, and we need to do a better job of celebrating that. And one of the most basic indicators of whether or not you're going to be in the 6+ billion or the 800 million is whether or not there's any rule of law.